So it's all to play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Well, we don't do things the easy way, do we? And to be honest with you, 30 minutes ago, I probably would have been starting this podcast with a slightly different tone and a slightly different facial expression. But I have to say we got there in the end, and welcome everybody to For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast for on the Final Whistle podcast for Aston Villa versus RB Salzburg, whereby my heart is full specifically for the way the last goal was scored. We'll discuss about the whole game, but I'm a sucker for childhood dreams coming true. I'm a sucker for seeing things that, or like I've seen stuff like that happen. And I know this is only a game against Salzburg, against a group of kids as well who played absolutely brilliant. And I will dedicate some time to Salzburg as well, because prior to this game I was effusive in praise of some of the players, and I think they proved me right in my praise for them. But we've seen an awful lot in the past whereby teams have gambled and put in young players against us, and they've done the business against us. And tonight Aston Villa looked dead and buried. They looked on the floor. They looked like they were going to, go out 2-0 against Salzburg. And there was just something changed when a couple of changes came in. Jimaloba comes on. Lindelof goes into midfield. Caden Young comes on as well. And the fluidity that those guys played with. And I know it's only two players. And I know George Hemming started and he didn't have the impact that I expected him to be. I don't think he was poor. I just think the team was unbalanced, and I'll speak about that in a moment as well. But for Jamaldine Jimaloba, after seeing how his mother celebrated him coming on as a sub in a game that we were losing previously, I was against Liverpool. I can't remember. I think it might have been against Liverpool. Correct me in the comments there. But having seen how his mother completely and utterly over-celebrated that, or it might have been Arsenal as well, actually, celebrated and was just like so full of joy. And then for him to come off the bench on a European night under the lights in the 88th minute and crack one home after a brilliant pass from Caden Young. The kids are all right. That's all I have to say here, is that the kids are all right. They looked like they were able to play at this level, admittedly against the Salzburg team who were full of kids as well, but I'm very happy for that. Now, there's an awful lot we can talk about in the game that was pure muck as well, but we will analyze the game in itself. The one big thing I'm going to take off tonight is that man Jamaldine Jimaloba has, he's life completed it, mate. Really, and obviously I mean that facetiously. You want him to go on and become top player for Aston Villa and so on, but to get a goal like that, get your first goal and winning goal in the 88th minute in a European tie under lights, when the game is completely going against your team, that is absolutely, that's brilliant. Like I'm a sucker for that. And if anybody is coming to our live gig in Dublin on the 28th of March, and if I have enough pints in me, I'll tell you about all my unfulfilled promise and potential as a sports star, as well as you look at me and my big flabby body and go, yeah, this fella's full of shit. But I do always have a soft spot for a fairy tale story like that. And you know what? Jamaldine Jimaloba, he's a big tall boy. He's maybe about 6'1". He'll be walking around the place now. He's 7'1" tonight after that. And he should. And he absolutely should. And you know what? Unai Emery should be walking around the place as 7 foot tall as well, because Unai Emery, I've been saying this since after the Everton game. I went on my state of the Villa address that I did after the Everton game, when Boubacar Kamara was injured, when we found out Boubacar Kamara would be out for the season and Malin was gone and so on. And I said that, my confidence stems from the fact that Unai Emery is more than just a coach. He's a problem solver. And even in game today, yeah, you could say he made substitutions that maybe they were Hail Marys, but they solved problems. Caden Young solved the problem that Jadon Sancho wasn't able to solve when he came on. Admittedly against more tired legs. Jamaldine Jimoloba picked up. There was 3 positions he picked up that were better than any position. The any position Harvey Elliott picked up when he was playing in that position, or that Bundia picked up when he was playing in that position, or even Morgan Rogers picked up, because Morgan Rogers' movement as a striker, or sorry, his central movement as a striker is way off for what a striker should be. But when in the second half, when he started to move out onto the left-hand side, we were an awful lot more freer, and he was pulling out the inexperienced centre halves, and that was creating space down through the middle. So I have to say that you know, the problem solving that he went in there, bringing Cash in was solved another problem that Aston Villa were having. Didn't look like it, because, you know, early in the second half, what was it, 6 minutes into the second half, and Lindelof and Cash lose their men. They run across them, and Yeo comes across, has this beautiful little flick, and we're 2-0 down, and it looks like massive panic stations for Aston Villa at that stage. But the problems were solved. Problems were solved in this game, and we should never have been 2-0 down. Well, I won't say we should never have been 2-0 down. Salzburg played really good football. They played like I felt that, and I got an actual DM from a mate of mine. He's not a Villa fan, but he's somebody that does scouting as well for in his spare time, and he actually went more seriously into doing scouting himself. And he sent me a DM going, I think you're a bit too high in some of these Salzburg players. And I went, I don't think I am. I think some of them are really, really good players, but they're really, really young. And that's why when this team was announced at the start of the game, I was surprised Rasmussen wasn't in there. I was surprised there wasn't an older head in there as well. And then when the game happened, and the Japanese lad that was in midfield, I didn't know a whole pile about it. Was that guy actually that messaged me, that said to me, what's the I'm blanking on the Japanese guy's name, but he was all over the place. He was brilliant in that game today, absolutely brilliant. He said to me, he goes, you didn't even mention this guy, and he's probably the best of the lot. So we can both claim a victory from that one, I think. But that Salzburg team will be deflated after that. But they played some really, really good football. They played some really coherent football. Some great. They had a great structure to them. Those two centre halves will go far. Both of those two centre halves will play at very decent levels. Bidstrup will play a very decent level. That Japanese kid will play at a very decent level. The striker, I think, Konate coming off in a lot of ways hindered them. Even though your man got the goal directly after he came on, I think Konate going off hindered them, and then Baidu went off. I think then later, shortly afterwards. Maybe not shortly afterwards, I think, when they made their 2 substitutions. But Villa nullified those 2 threats after we went 2-0 down. And yes, we were struggling to get back into it. Morgan Rogers gets the goal to bring us back into it. And then I think at that stage, you know, our more experienced players lifted the team. Keeping Tyrone Mings on, obviously, was a masterstroke. He comes up with that header. The second Matty Cash got the ball, my missus was actually, we've had a day of it. There's been everything that can go wrong has gone wrong, and myself and my missus have been literally put on the 2 tin hats, or have been trying to fight everything else that's happening in life currently at the moment, between house moves and stuff like that. And she decided she wanted to have a conversation just as Matty Cash got the ball, and I put up my hand and I said, "Stop! This is a brilliant cross." And next thing, then the cross goes in, and Mings nods into the back of the net, and I was like, we will speak afterwards. This is too good. We're gone 2-2, okay? So I actually had to cut her off in mid-sentence. I'm sure I'm going to pay for it when I go back in now in a minute. But what a brilliant cross from Cash. From that left-hand side as well. It was after a corner routine, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Comes back out to Cash. He cuts back in his right side, crosses that ball in. Mings gets a lovely header on it. And once we got back to 2-2, I knew we were never going to lose it. I wasn't sure whether we were going to win it, because I still thought that our interlink play, specifically with that front three, like at that stage I think we still had Buendia. Did we still have Buendia, Sancho and Harvey Elliott on? That 3 didn't work for me at all throughout the whole game. There were 3 individuals trying to play the same game way too quickly. and it just didn't work for me. It didn't work. Now, obviously, they're not used to playing with each other, but the three of those behind Morgan Rogers for the end of the first half and the first 10 minutes of the second half was almost unwatchable. There was no coherency or chemistry there, and sometimes it makes you kind of really appreciate when you see good chemistry within that front four at times, because that was really off, unexpectedly so, because they don't play together that often. But we dragged ourselves back into it 2-2. Once we got to 2-2, then a couple of substitutions happened, and the team looked way more fluid when we got to 2-2. We looked like, right, yeah, we're going to go on and win this. You know, there was a bit of cocksuredness about ourselves. The first half was extremely sloppy. I'd say, like, when you go back on Twitter, it's very rare that you will see Townley, Matt Maher, and Jacob Tanswell all be like there were no two minds about like calling Villa out about how sloppy and bad the game they were in that first half, considering the goal we conceded, which was really poor. And I refrained from tweeting about it, but in last night when we were listening to the press conference, and Tyrone Mings talked about cognitive fatigue, and on 38 minutes, 41 minutes, whenever we conceded, that was cognitive fatigue. You know, and he needs to eliminate that from his game. He's spoken about it himself. And of course that ball goes across, and Victor Lindelof, if he opens his legs, it probably goes wide, but he boots it into the back of the net. It was just one of those errors that, you know, that everybody was trying to do the right thing and nobody did anything right in that instance there. But overall, I think in the balance of power and the balance of play, Villa have to be like, the end result outweighs the blips that we had in the first half, and the reason it outweighs is because we've achieved what we wanted to achieve. But it was the manner of who scored that goal. Can you imagine being inside in that dressing room and Tyrone Mings and everybody there? They're going to make such a big deal out of those two lads, and that's brilliant for us, because in a team that is so ravaged with PSR, and in a team that's ravaged with financial issues and stuff like that, if you have one of those two guys step up and grab that position for themselves, make them a player that make Unai Emery have to put them on the bench. Now, that is huge for Aston Villa. Building your own blocks, creating your own players, bringing those guys into the team, the Hemmings, the Bogarts, whether it's Caden Young, whether it's Jimaldine Jemaloba, so on and so forth. Getting those guys to make that step up is hard. But maybe it takes a moment like this for them to feel part of that group. Because one thing Aston Villa are going to go through is, Aston Villa are currently at the moment, you've got a massive amount, like nearly every senior player is 26 or older, 27 or older. And you've got kids coming up who are 18, 19, 20. And while it's maybe 6 years or 7 years in the difference, for Jimmy Aloba to talk to Tyrone Mings, who's 33, they probably have very little in common. But what they will have in common is performances on the field. And to feel part of that locker room is what I'm talking about. When you come in as a kid, you kind of go, well, I'm the kid in this locker room. But if you start proving yourself, you become part of the locker room really, really quickly. And goals like that tonight, and performances like that from Caden Young, cutbacks and just the directness of him, you know, they make the kids will always be made feel part of the group, but they will always feel like they have to earn their way into that group as well. And by scoring goals and having performances like that, I think they will. And by Unai Emery showing faith in them like he did tonight, they turned the game. Like they I won't say that they completely turned the game, but they won the game for us, those two guys, because it was a great run from Caden Young. It was a great cutback, and it was a brilliant finish from Jemaldine Jemaloba. And that's, you know, that's the story of this game. It really, really is. We had some bad moments in this game, but the one highlight of this game could be, you know, as I say, up to those two guys now to build upon this. And I don't think I'm being hyperbolic with regards to how important it is to have kids, like kids that you've grown through your own academy, come off the bench and score a goal of that importance. Everybody here has been talking, like I've been less enamored with the whole having to finish top two than probably most podcasters, and definitely you guys in the chat. And that's okay. That's okay. If I was asked what was more important in the morning, finishing top two in the Europa League, finishing top four in the Premier League, you guys know I would take finishing fourth in the Premier League on goal difference over finishing top 2 in the Europa League. And I know most people probably would. But to be able to do it and be hamstrung, I'll get on to somebody who hopefully isn't hamstrung in a moment, and that's Ollie Watkins. But to be hamstrung from injuries point of view and not being able to register Leon Bailey, not being able to register Douglas Luiz, not being able to register Tammy Abraham, and have 2 kids come off the bench like that and win the game for us, that's brilliant. That's problem solving 101. We've achieved our goal against while pushing a boulder up the hill, and the manner of achievement, the manner of going 2-0 down and playing poorly in the first half is a moot point because we got the result. We got the result at the end of the day. Now, I will go back to something there that I mentioned about Ollie Watkins, and I hope that hamstring pull, I hope that was very precautionary, and I think it was precautionary. But we don't want to see that from our essentially our. I know we have Tammy Abraham in, but like our only current fit striker that has kicked the football for Aston Villa in 2026 or 2025. Tammy Abraham is obviously through the door. Gassand not here anymore. It's Abraham and Watkins. There are 2 striking options at the moment. I don't. The juice ain't worth the squeeze putting Morgan Rogers up top unless we absolutely have to. So I hope Ollie Watkins' injury. That was the. I don't care about Ming's mishap. He'll have to watch that over and over again, and Unai Emery will put a rocket up his hole for that. That's obvious. But the only black marker, the only dark cloud for me in the game is the Watkins hamstring twinge. Runs down the tunnel. I'm hoping if you guys are if you guys know of if he said anything, if Unai Emery said anything, please pop it in the chat there in a moment. I'll come back into it, and it will and we'll take a look at that. But that's one that I'm going to be crossing my fingers and on the edge of my seat to understand: is there an actual injury there? Is it going to be is it a problem, or was he taken off due to precaution? So let me know. It did, yeah. So Richie Ryan says there, just the tightness from overstretching. In my, it did look like that because on TNT Sports, did they not say that he stretched and then asked 12 minutes later to see if he could come off? Like, so you don't really run around if you've got a hamstring tear. Well, you could, but it'd be very, very noticeable. I wonder was it a tight hamstring or what happened with it? But yeah, I'll be waiting with bated breath to understand that one. Or to see if that is see what the situation is there, because we can ill afford to have a fourth member of our starting 11 be out for a couple of weeks. Now, once again, we've got Mr. Problem Solver, but he's got a lot of problems to solve as it is. So hopefully there is good news on the Tammy Abraham front. Really, hopefully. John Duran mentions here as well, we've won 3 in a row now. That's important for momentum. Absolutely. And it may not seem like a whole lot, but the reason that I think it is brilliant is because, there was such an ill feeling after the Everton game. Like, it really turned look, I'm okay with fans. Like I've said this before, this isn't me preaching holier than thou or anything like that, because I was pissed off after the Everton game as well. But there was a sense that everything was kind of like jittery after the Everton game. Like the media went hell for leather after Villa after the Everton game, absolute hell for leather, and I thought it was way over the top. I thought that was way over the top. I'm okay with fans voicing their displeasure at the loss. I'm okay with fans saying they're worried about this, that, and the other. But the media went fucking catastrophically over the top about everything Aston Villa over that one loss to Everton. It's because they and the whole Villa are out of the title race. They've just blown their chance at winning the league. All this like media driven narrative anyway. And I'm not one of these guys who's like very anti-media. Paddy, apologies, I'm not having a crack at you here because you're not here to defend yourself, but I leave that stuff usually to Paddy. But that was so bloody obvious for me that like people were getting their clicks in, they were getting their barbs in, they were not happy with us. They were like, I told you so. Villa were going to fall off. There's been that element all the way through the year about Aston Villa. And the fact that we did lose that game, yes, we came back and we won last week against Fenerbahce. We won against Newcastle, 2 bloody tough games. And we've come back from 2-0 down to win tonight with in the second half, with very much so a reserve team in a lot of reserve players playing in prominent positions in that second half. So that is important. It was what John said there. You know, it is important to have that momentum, but to do it in the manner we have, losing John McGinn, losing Boubacar Kamara for the Fenerbahce game, losing John McGinn, losing Yuri Tielemans using Yuri Tielemans, all in that space of time since the Everton game. Our whole midfield gone. And to still come out winning those 3 games, that's problem solving FC. That's a great manager, but it's also a tight dressing room. It's also a tight dressing room to be able to even win that game tonight. So I'm very, like, the means are absolutely all that matters here. The end of this game is all that really matters for me. Eating bread and all that kind of stuff, all those different sayings, like eating bread is soon forgotten, all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to cry over spilt milk. Think of what other sayings. They really, really mean what they mean in the context of this game. Villa got out of this with second place, with a top two finish, joint on points with Lyon, joint first if you want to call it that way. They achieved their goal. They move on. Now we wait to see if Ollie Watkins is okay. And then what we do is we beat Brentford on Sunday and we start looking at that league. We don't have games now in Europe for quite a while. I checked this before. My mind has gone to mush at the moment, but I checked when we potentially play our next European game at the moment. I think it's something like the 6th of March? Something along those lines. So we have time for players to rest up. We have time for and what I mean by that is, we'll be, we'll have greater amounts of time between games, theoretically anyway, between now and then. Hopefully we'll be able to get 1 or 2 players back. As I say, like, we should have four players in the squad for the weekend. Ross Barkley, we should have Tammy Abraham, we should have Douglas Luiz, we should have Leon Bailey. All 4 of those will be back in the squad. That's a good boost to what we had here as well. Then if we can get 1 or 2 more back before, like maybe somebody makes a miraculous recovery, like John McGinn makes a miraculous recovery and is back within 4 weeks as opposed to 6 weeks, something like that to lift the squad. Very much in our own hands what we achieved this year, whether it be in Europe or whether we finish second, whether we finish third, whether we finish fourth in the Premier League, whisper it, whether we finish top. Very much in our own hands. And if we can continue to solve problems with the run of games that we have coming at the moment, and nobody in the Premier League is a gimme at any stage. But if we put together decent performances, specifically in our home games coming up, I want us to keep that buffer zone and to keep plowing towards the goal of Champions League football, and then we can worry about European football then when it comes back. And so that we put ourselves in a good enough position that we can have a right rattle off whoever we draw in the next round in Europe. I'm happy. All in all, I think in the balance, I'm actually happy with that game. There was a lot of bad in it, but as I say, the outcome of that game and the way that the person that scored that goal and the way that it was crafted in the end is a big plus point for tonight, specifically in the face of all the adversity that we've had. I'm going to leave you guys lap up all the rest of the podcasts that are out there. Go away and watch them all. We're going through a very special time in Aston Villa football at the moment. Europe is our playground. Premier League is more than just a dream away. And this is as good as it's been for us since probably back around 1996 when we last won our last trophy. And if you are interested in the bio for this, if you haven't gotten tickets for our 1996 celebration, where we will have 4 players, the first of which we will be announcing tomorrow, by the way, come and join us and grab yourself a ticket. And I think there's about 63% of the tickets, I think, are gone at the moment. I think we've about 140 tickets sold of whatever, do the maths there. I can't remember what it is. So thank you so much to everybody. It's going to be a wicked day. It's going to be a brilliant day. And we will announce the first of our players tomorrow. And we'll probably have a preview show as well tomorrow for the game at the weekend when Sir Patrick Kelly is back in the country and I can get him back on his microphone. But anyway, I leave you guys to it. Go away and watch all the other Villa content. Thank you so much for choosing mine first. There's now nearly 1,600 people watching this concurrently. Mind blown whenever I see numbers like that. And I do thank you all for your time. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll be back to see you tomorrow. And all that's left to say is up the comeback villains.